Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto fight like Shisui. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. Being an Uchiha was awkward. Everyone other than my brother just seemed stiff. I once asked Shisui why they were all like that, but he just laughed and ruffled my hair. Later on, he just told me that some of the Uchiha were born that way. We were some of the lucky few that were not. He also claimed that his friend Itachi was also different from the usual Uchiha, but I did not see it. Itachi seemed pretty much the same as the typical Uchiha to me. Some of my favorite pastimes were training to become a ninja with Shisui ni. My brother liked to claim that I was in a competition to become better than Itachi's brother, Sasuke. Personally, I didn't care about that competition stuff, but I loved spending time with my brother. Since I was going to become a ninja someday, learning these things was probably important. Shisui ni didn't like to talk too much about everything he did as a ninja, but he definitely talked about how much of a privilege it was to protect your village and help to enforce justice in a way that honors yourself and your family. Eventually, I noticed that even Shisui ni was becoming stiffer. Honestly, I didn't understand just what was going on, but I was distracted by Shisui ni signing me up to go to the academy. I ended up being classmates with my rival, Sasuke, which honestly I didn't care much about. Usually, I just went there and kind of slept. The lessons weren't interesting like what Shisui ni taught me. They were boring, useless, dry, and the sensei would just drone on and on about something that happened like 50 years ago. It was a waste of time. It was around the time that I turned 7 that I became more knowledgeable of the fact Shisui ni was going through some hard times. He seemed pretty jumpy, and whenever I asked what was wrong, I would get some stupid answer. I knew what it meant. My father only wanted to protect me. Still, I wanted to protect my brother as well. That is the way it should be. Brothers protecting brothers, at least that was what Shisui ni taught me. Therefore, I followed him around. Shisui ni once told me that I was not good at stealth. I told him that for 7 years old, I was probably one of the best he'd met. My brother just laughed me off, said that he'd met better and that I should never forget that there was always someone better. Maybe that's why he found me following him and gave me the angriest expression I'd ever seen on him. Rai-chan, what are you doing out here? I just gave him the biggest grin I could, but my eyes held the worry I was feeling. I'm following you because I definitely want to be able to help my brother. You taught me that, so I have to live up to it. My brother just stared at me for a moment, before giving a chuckle. I just can't stay mad at you, can I, Rai-chan? My adorable little brother just gives me one look. Okay, the things that I'm involved with are no good for a little kid like you, but you're mature. I won't tell you anything about what I'm doing, but I will tell you that it's dangerous. That is what ninja life is though. You put yourself in danger to do the right thing sometimes. Itachi and I, we're both putting ourselves in harm's way to protect the things that we care about the most. Especially both you and Sasuke. So I need you to watch out for yourself and Itachi's little brother, do you understand? My brother trusted me with this. I don't think I'd ever felt something as warm as what I was feeling in that moment. I felt worthy, like I could do anything as long as he was looking at me with those trusting eyes. I promise Shisui ni, I'll protect myself and Uke-chan, even though he is a stiffy Uchiha. I noticed my brother about to burst into laughter, and just pouted, not really understanding what was wrong. The lighthearted atmosphere ended rather quickly, as I was rushed back to the clan compound and my brother left quickly pointed a few things out. I'm definitely going to come back from this mission, little brother, that's a promise. However, just in case, you see that picture right there? Behind it is some of the jutsu that I made and perfected. If something happens to me, that is where you can learn this family's legacy. Sure, we are Uchiha, but we are more than that too. Shisui ni left soon after that. Later the next day, I was walking home with Sasuke when we noticed that something wasn't right. Entering the Uchiha compound wasn't meant to be a war zone, but it was. There were bodies everywhere, blood. Moreover, there was a figure, someone that both of the 7-year-old kids knew. Itachi Uchiha. Clearly, I had been wrong about the fact that Itachi wasn't different from the rest of the clan, maybe in an unexpected way. He smelled of blood, and I just wanted to get away from him as soon as possible. But my legs wouldn't move. Sasuke didn't seem to have the same problem, rather, he seemed oblivious to the fact it was Itachi that had done the carnage. His eyes weren't the typical Sharingan either. Instead, they struck a chord of deep revulsion that had me flinching away, even though logically I knew Itachi had never hurt me before, even if the evidence really spoke for itself. The second after my eyes met Itachi's, however, the world faded away, and I was brought somewhere else. My brother was across from me. I was about to shout out to Shisui ni, to tell him what was going on, to tell him that we needed to get help, to get the Hokage, to do something. Instead, Itachi appeared out of nowhere and killed him. I just stared. I watched as Shisui's blood drained quickly from the horrifyingly gaping wound inside of his neck. It was much more than a simple slit throat. It almost seemed as though he was decapitated, because I could actually see the bone from my brother's neck peeking outside of the cut. I felt detached in a way that I couldn't really explain. There was a rage inside of me that I'd never felt before, but at the same time, I knew that this wasn't right. This didn't actually happen. I had been just outside the compound, and then I was suddenly in my family's house? That didn't make any sense. It was genjutsu. That didn't make it feel any less real. He's dead, I killed him, and I killed them all. There was nothing you or that weakling Sasuke could have done to stop me. You don't have the strength, you don't have the hatred. Itachi's voice echoed. This is my genjutsu. For the next 24 hours, you will be tortured with the image of me killing Shisui. You have 23 hours and 50 minutes left. And hell began. It was said that the Uchiha activated their Sharingan when they experienced something extremely stressful or traumatic. I now knew that this wasn't true, because of the night of the massacre, when I activated my Sharingan, Sasuke didn't. Sitting together in the hospital room, feeling cold and more isolated than I'd ever felt, I asked my only remaining relative if he'd activated it during the attack. He whispered feather light and breaking that no, he had not. I did not tell him that I had. I wouldn't tell anyone, not until I knew for sure what was going on and why this had happened. If Itachi was killing people with the Sharingan, saying that I had it before I could defend myself was like suicide. Ultimately, I knew that thinking over the situation from a strategic point of view was not going to help me get over what happened. I would never get over it. That did not mean I could not move past it. At least we still have each other. I offered to the still Sasuke, who still looked brittle enough to crack. Sasuke did not say anything back. Going back home was a somber experience. It was almost as though I did not believe my brother was gone until I walked into the house. It was empty. No longer did it have the same cheer that my brother and I shared together. If I thought I'd felt alone in the hospital, it was nothing compared to the sheer ice that I felt here. My brother left me something though. He said that if he died I should check it out. In some ways, I was almost sure he was expecting to die. The whole situation was sticky, something did not fit right, but I was not exactly sure that I wanted to know. Getting involved in something that ended up with my whole clan killed and my brother dead probably was not the brightest idea that I had ever had. Therefore, I went over to where my brother left my promised inheritance and I found something that warmed that ice quite a bit. It was a book. The book was plain looking, but it was the title that really did me in, Guide to Being a Badass Uchiha Without Being a Stiffy. By Shisui Uchiha. Tears escaped my eyes, falling onto the bindings of the book, but my mouth was spread in a wide grin. I had a few weeks off from the academy. Grieving time, they said. The villagers looked at both Sasuke and me with pity in their eyes. Sasuke did not like it, I could tell. He would glare at them, but I looked at it and could not help but think that it was almost nice. Those people had taken the time out of their day to actually think about my ungrateful brat relative and me. Despite the fact it was in a distasteful way. Instead of glaring like my darling cousin, I gave them a thumb up and a smile. If I was okay, then they would not look at me like that anymore. It would make them feel better as well, so why not? During the time off from the academy, I read the book my brother had left me backward and forwards. I wanted to memorize every word, even if I could not actively do any of those things yet, even if I never could. I would remember my brother's legacy in this, and in all the other ways I could think to do so. While I did this, Sasuke trained with a ferocity that I don't think I have ever seen in a human being. When I asked why he was pushing himself so far, he would grunt before replying, "I'm going to get strong enough to kill him, to avenge our family." I just nodded thoughtfully and thanked him for letting me know. I kept my opinion to myself because dark eyes like those wouldn't listen to my doubts. Especially considering that I had nothing to back it up other than the mild feeling that something was out of place. Not only was it not enough to get my cousin to believe, it also wasn't enough for me to go and possibly get Uke-chan's broken heart to fill with hope again. If it did, I somehow doubt it would actually survive another breaking. It was a good place to remember some of his brother's book. Keep your cards close. Information is gold in the shinobi world. When you gain a skill, keep it secret. When you learn something dangerous, bury it deep, and keep yourself safe from those who would do you harm. No matter what though, don't let it affect who you are as a person. Being a shinobi and being a human go together hand in hand over an extremely thin line. Walking that line is the most important step to not becoming a stiffy. I told my brother's book to heart in so many ways. I kept smiling. I found reasons to be happy every day. The sky, the sun, the beautiful weather, the people that cared even when you didn't know them. There are so many good things in this world. At the same time, I kept in mind just how easy it was to destroy this good. It was flimsy, breakable, and it needed people to protect it. We had gone back to the academy. Sasuke was obsessive, learning everything he could there, then coming home to the compound and learning even more. Working himself to the bone in a way that might actually be counterproductive. Somehow, though, I couldn't bring myself to stop him. Even knowing that he was possibly hurting himself, I knew that Uke-chan needed it. Just like he needed me to call him Uke-chan, to poke fun at him, to seem happy at all times. I was more than willing to do that for him. When he wasn't paying attention though, then it was time for me to start improving myself. Seriousness was needed sometimes, and I needed to train. Not only had I activated my Sharingan and gained a burning curiosity on how to use it, I also needed to become strong enough to protect that cousin of mine from the stupid things that he did. This is part of the reason I choose the way I would go with my ninja skills. Shisui's book had several pointers for me that I took under advisement. Ninjutsu, Genjutsu, Fuinjutsu, Taijutsu, Iryo Ninjutsu, Bukajutsu, interrogation and torture, intelligence, and more. All of those were different ninja specialties. Shisui recommended in his book that you choose one or two to become extremely good at, then you take the others and keep yourself on or above average. I choose Genjutsu and Iryo Ninjutsu to be the two types that I focused on. The exhausting work that you would need to put yourself through for ninjutsu or taijutsu wasn't all that fitting for me. Fuinjutsu was hard to learn, not many people taught it. Bukajutsu wasn't all that smart a choice as far as I could tell, it was very limiting, and the subclassifications of interrogation etc. didn't fit me at all. I doubt I could torture someone with a straight face. The most important part of Genjutsu and Iryo Ninjutsu was chakra control, which is why not many males bothered to get into it. Males, in general, were horrible at chakra control, as their chakra was more wild and unrefined than a woman's by nature. That wouldn't stop me though. If it took longer for a man to become good at chakra control, then I would just do it quicker than any male before me. Shisui lists several chakra control exercises in his book, expressing a deep appreciation for it. Shisui Ni was actually a very good genjutsu user and had ground chakra control techniques for all they were worth, or so he says. I wanted to be like Shisui Ni, to follow in the overly large footprints that my brother had left behind. If it were purely about that, however, I wouldn't have chosen to learn Iryo Ninjutsu as well. The reasoning behind that was, I was going to become the person that Sasuke could depend on. When he happened to be injured training, I would heal him. When he was nearly dead, I'd be there to save his life, and when he went after people that were utterly out of his league, I'd be there to pull him out. Therefore, when Sasuke was busy and paying me no mind, I trained myself into the dirt. A year later, I was definitely noticing the fruits of my labor. I didn't bother to show anyone else. Not only did I not want Sasuke to know, but I also still remembered Shisui's advice to keep my cards close. I had gotten the leaf floating and tree walking exercise down. Now, I was working on the walker walking exercise. It was interesting, learning chakra control. It helps to grow your wells of chakra for one. Each time I practiced I could feel chakra and control falling into place as though it belonged there. I practiced the hell out of each of the techniques, half a year for each one. I mastered them, I didn't just complete them. I wanted to be able to do them when distracted, when reading, when using the Sharingan. Utilizing my Sharingan was one of the most useful ways to train, I had realized early on. I would use it to watch my own training and help me to learn and memorize the way my chakra flowed through my body. This was a twofold way of training, as it helped me to increase my stamina in regards to my dojutsu. It stayed with one comma in each eye, but that wasn't something that I really cared about. With the ability to use the Sharingan came the want to abuse it. I wasn't so stupid as to think I could just walk down into a Junin training session and copy their jutsu and be able to use them perfectly. I didn't have the chakra for that, and it would strain my eyes far too much. I did, however, very much want to use them to help me learn a taijutsu style. At the moment, I very much disliked taijutsu. The punching, kicking and practicing forms is mindless. I wanted to do as little of it as possible. The urge to use my dojutsu eventually overcame me, but if I was going to do it, I would be smart about it. I would keep in mind my brother's words. The Sharingan is a powerful tool. It's just that, however, a tool. Too many of the stiffy Uchiha look at it as though it's what makes them a great ninja. This isn't the case. What makes a good ninja is what they can do without any of the tools that genetics would have given them. This is something that can only be achieved through hard work and practice. Something that I don't blame you for trying to avoid, but you absolutely must avoid this trap. I wanted something that allowed for a lot of dodging. It would be best, considering my main avenues, to be able to run away and dodge effectively and only striking when I knew I would hit something vital. I didn't know of a style like that. Well, that plan was utter scrap. I resisted the urge to pout about it, deciding that I would just have to wait until I found a style I liked. There was a newcomer in my class that I was really coming to like. Naruto Uzumaki was the son. The way he lit the room when he walked in was undeniable to anyone that bothered to pay any attention. Everything became more lively, even my darling Uke-chan paid attention to him. Those attentions were fleeting though, and I could almost see the way that Naruto was hurting. I just didn't know what I could do about it. In a way, Naruto reminded me of my brother. Sure, he was unrefined, loud, and clashing, but there was something underneath all of that. The blonde was also reminding me of the fact that there were other people in the world. Hell, it was only in that moment that I realized I didn't really know any of my classmates' names. Had I become so obsessed that I didn't even notice I was falling under it all? I clearly needed friends other than Sasuke in training. Naruto presented the perfect first victim. Hey, I'm Reishi Uchiha, don't worry though, I'm not like my stick-in-the-mud cousin. I actually know how to smile. As if to prove it, I gave the blonde in front of me a wide toothy grin. He looked up with an even wider smile. It was as if someone had just handed him the world. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and one day, I'm going to become Hokage. Dat Bayo. Hokage huh, you have a lot of work cut out for you then. I'll definitely find some way to push you there. After all, I think we are going to become great friends. That was the start of something amazing. Because Naruto's eyes lit up in such a bright blue that I thought I was looking at a clear blue sky. In that moment, Sasuke didn't matter at all. How could he in the face of such innocent happiness? A happiness that I would protect, just like I knew that delicate beauty in the world needed protecting. I knew that Naruto needed it so much more. It was a good choice, I knew that. Having more than one friend was better than having the one. Naruto was amazing and filled in parts of my heart that I had forgotten. I was teasing people again, people I just met. I was touching people in passing, friendly pats on the shoulder or back. Things that I didn't even notice I'd been avoiding. I'd been healed from injuries I didn't even notice I was carrying. Now I needed something else, though I didn't really understand where that yearning was coming from. I wanted someone else to be my friend, and I wanted someone that was my own age. Looking around the academy classroom, I knew that it wasn't going to be an easy choice. All my cousin's fangirls were immediately out of the running. Shino was too quiet for me. Kiba was too loud for me. Hinata was too delicate, a weird sort of breakable. That left two choices, Shikamaru Nara or Choji Akamichi. Having both of them would be a pain. In addition to Naruto, having two other friends was too much. One was perfect, but which? At least, that thought lasted until I saw Shikamaru cloud watching, just enjoying his day. The Nara looked so peaceful. I smiled as I looked on, before eventually walking over to join him after Choji left. I didn't say a word, just lay right next to him and looked at the sky, the clouds, and noted that it really was beautiful. This would work. One of the things that my brother warned against was using chakra weights until I hit puberty. If I used them before that, I would stay short as my growing would be permanently stunted. Eventually, I decided that I would prefer it that way. Not only would I get the use of chakra weights down and become much faster, but even if it did slow my growth, all that would really do was give me something that would make my opponents underestimate me. What wasn't to like about that? The logical choice was the one I made. I walked into the ninja shop with that in mind. I bought 4 chakra weights, one for each limb. The guy that was selling them clearly didn't know what they were. Then something else caught my eye. "What's that doing in a ninja shop?" I asked suddenly, pointing my finger toward the object in question. The man tilted his head to the side as he looked at it as well. The ninja made it specifically for himself but was dying from something terminal and he gave it to me. He said that it was made out of chakra conductive metal, whatever that means. It's too heavy for moving, so I just left it against the wall where he put it. I want it. What was it exactly? A steel or metal rod, sturdy as all hell, with metal sheets around it. Opening it up, it became an umbrella. There were seals on it as well, although I had no clue what they meant. The fabric part of the umbrella was made of a weird metal. It bent, but it was colored as well. Anyone that didn't touch it would have thought it was made of cloth. It was an abnormal weapon, that was for sure. I could tell that was exactly what it was though. I was weirdly drawn to it, but I would make it mine and figure out its use. Most likely just integrating it into my fighting style when I finally got around to it. Sure, I bought it, but I expected to be able to pick it up. I'll also need one of those things you use to move heavy things around your shop. I'll pay for it, of course. Therefore, it would be a while before I could start training with the weirdly heavy umbrella, but I was still happy with my choice. After all, no one expected an umbrella of all things to be a weapon. Eventually, I decided that it would be stupid to learn both taijutsu and how to use my umbrella. It was a waste of time to learn both when they were going to amount to the same thing. No one that I knew used an umbrella to fight, but honestly, that just made it more interesting. Ultimately, I decided to make some sort of a cross between a sword style of fighting and fan style. In the fan style of fighting, the fan itself was used as a shield a lot. My umbrella was perfect for that. When opened, it was also sharp on the edges, so if I was careful I could actually use it as a slicing weapon, hence learning a sword style. I had mused over bojutsu but eventually decided that the umbrella was too short for that style to be of use. Coming up with my own style was harder than I thought. I learned quickly enough. This was exceptionally true because the umbrella was so heavy. I had only just managed to pick it up after a month of hard work. I only just now knew how much work was going to be involved in learning how to become a ninja good enough to follow my brother's legacy, yet somehow I had never been more determined to make this work. The thing I loved about weight training was the fact you didn't actually have to go out of your way. It might not be as fast, but just walking around the village you would eventually get the effects of the training. Therefore, that is exactly what I did. Instead of doing reps, I would just up the weights and walk around the village, a book in hand. It was good multitasking. The books I read usually had something to do with the human body and anatomy. I had not actually learned any real Iryo ninjutsu yet, but I needed this knowledge before I used those techniques anyway. I had 3 more years until graduation. The day loomed over me as if telling me that I needed to be more than ready. I needed to be exceptional by the time I graduated or I was done for when I actually met with the ninja world. I knew that it was not so dire. When I graduated, I would have a whole team. A Junin sensei to keep us safe and train us, but the logic did not affect my thinking any. There had also been several other developments. My umbrella with seals on it? I got curious so I channeled a little bit of chakra into one of the seals. It transformed the umbrella to look exactly like its flimsy unweaponized brother, though it weighted the same and kept all the original properties. My friendships with Naruto and Shikamaru were also going well. Naruto was one of the best friends you could ask for. Sasuke did not like the fact that I had befriended the Dobi, but there was a weird look in his eye as he said it. Somehow, I got the feeling that really, he was just jealous. My little Uke-chan wanted Naruto to be his friend as well. It was adorable. I snickered whenever I noticed him looking at Naruto with hidden longing. Naruto was actually much the same towards Sasuke. If I had to guess, it was because both of them were extremely lonely. When they were in the same room together, they sort of started to ignore me in favor of each other. I was okay with that. After all, I had someone separate from them as well. Shikamaru was one of the most relaxing friends you could ask for. I just met him in the same spot every day. Sometimes I would watch the clouds with him. Other times I would sit next to him and read, and it had been going on for a few years now. About a year in, I broke our silence. Are we friends? Don't be stupid. We've been friends for a while, moron, in Shikamaru language. My style with the umbrella was completed as much as I could without the help of an actual teacher. I felt good walking around with it, as though it were just a normal umbrella. It was actually an interesting exercise, making it seem like the thing weighed like nothing more than a normal sun umbrella. Everything seemed to be falling into place recently. My chakra control was extremely good now, especially for my age. I had the walker walking down. Meanwhile, the kids at the academy were still floating leaves. It made me feel prideful, but I knew better than to let that get to me. Shisui said, "Pride is the downfall of good shinobi, but it is the ultimate bane to Uchiha. If you are not careful, you can get so prideful that it blinds you to the real world. That does not mean that you cannot feel pride in your skills, it just means you have to remain mindful of the fact that there is always someone better." One day I had been sleeping in class, and Iru-sensei woke me up with his usual vigor, saying that we were learning about the Sannin on that day. Tsunade, the famous medical ninja the whole world acknowledged her for her skill, the Nukenin who became the strongest enemy of the leaf, and the sage who taught the fourth Hokage. I only had ears in regards to Tsunade, however. She was the female idol, but she was my goal. The year of graduation was crunch time. I already knew I could pass the academy test. I just wanted my skills to be above par. I had been training myself in chakra control and knowledge, it was time to start putting that to the test. I set a goal for myself. Before I graduated, I would have at least 3 genjutsu down, and at least 1 Iryo ninjutsu. The genjutsu would not be Sharingan genjutsu either. Those would come naturally for me. The Sharingan just naturally had a good skill boost with genjutsu. No, those techniques needed to be non-Sharingan related. It would be good for me to learn not to rely so much on my dojutsu. I had a lot of work in front of me. Naruto-chan once asked why I never trained physically. The most he had ever seen me do was throwing kunai so that I could get enough aim to actually pass the test. Honestly, I did not know how to explain it without coming off as insulting toward his own efforts. I guess, the type of shinobi I want to be doesn't need taijutsu as the main avenue. I muttered but then gave Naruto a mischievous smirk. Do not worry though, Naruto-chan. I actually do some physical training. You just can't see me doing it. Sometimes I practiced with my weights off. You needed to be able to adapt to the speeds to use them, otherwise, they were worthless. Even never doing much physical activity and only upping my weights the tiniest bit every day, I had gained a large amount of speed. Nothing compared to what I would actually gain if I did the hard work to back it up, but I preferred to take it easy and supplement my general knowledge. I even read history. As long as Iruka-sensei was not the one teaching it, the information became infinitely less boring. Naruto-chan also did not know that my skill set lay in genjutsu and Iryo ninjutsu. I do not think anyone did. Although Shika-chan might have guessed, seeing my books a lot of the time when we were together looking at the clouds. I had actually gotten the mystical palm technique done rather well. I had been practicing on fish, as the book had recommended. Once I had that down, I cut myself and started to heal that. It sounded almost disturbing to say that, but practice made perfect. Genjutsu was harder to work on. I thought I had the techniques down, I knew the hand signs and everything, but I definitely needed to practice on an actual person. Shika-chan, I want your help with something, I said, walking up to my friend. He looked up, surprised. Normally we somewhat just sat in the comfortable silence, rarely if ever exchanging any words. Yes? He seemed almost hesitant, worried about just what my request would be. I don't think I would have blamed him for that either. I do not think the grin on my face was the nicest at the moment. I need some help making sure I'm using these genjutsu right. You wouldn't want your dear friend to die because they used a technique they weren't sure would work on a living human, would you? I laid it on thick and quick. If I left room for Shika-chan to maneuver, he would escape. Troublesome? He whispered, realizing that I had him caught. Personally, Shikamaru didn't have that much of a problem helping Raishi. The male was his friend and barely ever asked for anything. Honestly, it was the least demanding relationship that he had. It was nice, calming, and he supposed that he did owe Raishi some help for giving him that. Seeing him getting up, although he remained rather lazy in demeanor, I knew that I owed my friend something for this. I highly doubted that the experience would be pleasant, genjutsu rarely were. Naruto-chan was having problems. The academy test was just around the corner, and he still couldn't do the clone jutsu. He told me that he had it under control, but a week before the test took place, he came to me and confessed wearing a sheepish grin. I raised an eyebrow at him. Really, Naruto-chan, if you just told me before the ass end of this year, I could have helped you much faster. You stubborn little trickster you. I flicked him on the forehead, laughing as he reached up and placed a hand on his forehead in shock. Now, let's see this clone jutsu of yours. The problem was worse than I thought. The fact was, it shouldn't be a problem for an academy student. Naruto was putting way too much chakra into the technique and was making it practically explode. I'd actually seen Sasuke do it once as well and immediately corrected him, saying that he needed to make sure he was using a smaller amount of chakra. I tried giving this instruction to Naruto as well. Yet, he proved incapable of actually collected that small of an amount of chakra. A week to learn more advanced chakra control? Naruto would have to learn at least water walking if he wanted hope to use the clone technique by the look of it. Naruto-chan, I know what the problem is. I'm just not sure if we can actually fix it in time. I'll try though. I was determined to never see the sadness in Naruto's eyes after failing the exam ever again. Therefore, I started to instruct him in tree walking. As he did that, I took the time to polish up on a few things. I had learned the 3 genjutsu that I wanted, along with the 1 Iryo ninjutsu that was the most basic and useful. In combat though, hand seals were a pain. You needed to be able to get through them quickly or take some of them out. The better your control, the easier it was to take some hand seals out, but before I experimented on that, I wanted to be able to do the hand signs faster. Practice would make perfect with this. Still, it was better than practicing taijutsu kata. At least when I did this, I could read at the same time. Naruto was determined, but I knew he wasn't going to learn enough chakra control before the exam to actually be able to pass it. I let him down. I wouldn't allow myself to do that again. I dressed the day of the academy assessment in my typical clothing. A mesh short beneath a gray haori with deep blackish red flames, followed by black pants that fit to my leg from the knee down, and black sandals that were a mix of Zori and Waraji style. My hair was its typical black spiky mess. My weights were on under my clothing. You wouldn't know they were there unless you were truly looking for them. I also had my unassuming umbrella with me. It looked natural for me holding it now, no sign of any straining muscles even as I held it over my head. I was actually pretty excited, bordering on nervous. This was truly the first day of my shinobi career should I pass this test. And I would pass it, I was determined to. I already knew how it would go. I would pass the written exam with flying colors, much to the surprise of Iruka-sensei since I sleep in his class all the time. I would ace the genjutsu test easily. I knew all the academy basic ninjutsu so I would pass that. I would get a poor grade in taijutsu and bukajutsu. I'd pass somewhere in the back end of the class. Not last, I'm sure, but not even near the middle. I might be able to pull out a pass in taijutsu if I surprised the examiner with my speed, but keeping the cards close was an important part of being a shinobi. There was no shame in passing but doing so with low grades. As long as you actually had the skill to go on hidden within. I believed that I truly had the skill to be a genin a while ago. Uke-chan was somewhat similar in that aspect. He probably didn't want to graduate early because Itachi did. I also believed that Naruto had the skill as well. His chakra level was way above normal, and his ability with traps and pranks made up for any failing that he had. At least, it should have. The people that were testing him were weirdly against Naruto-chan. One day I would find out why, but every time I asked someone the reason he or she seemed to dislike my adorable little friend, they would just say it was about the pranks. They must have thought me an idiot. For some reason, people in this village didn't believe you were actually smart if you could manage to smile at them. I should encourage that, despite the fact it was mildly insulting. Arriving at the academy, I saw Uke-chan already there, ignoring the fangirls. I folded my umbrella but, as always, I kept it with me. I sat next to Shikamaru, who lifted his head to give me a lazy smile before his head slammed back toward the desk and snores started to erupt from his spiky head. I erupted into snickers. When Naruto showed up, it got even better. He was glaring at Uke-chan, even got up on the desk in front of Sasuke to do so. He was bumped forward. I grabbed Shikamaru's head and bent it toward the site, knowing he wouldn't want to miss it. Naruto and Sasuke had connected lips. My snickers turned into full-blown laughter. Shikamaru started to chuckle as well. Naruto-chan looked at me hurt by the fact I was laughing at his pain, but I just waved it off. Teasing was common between good friends. Naruto-chan would get over it. Eventually, we all were passed out exams and were told to shut the hell up. I finished it reasonably quickly and was dragged in to do the other assessments. I did as predicted, no surprises. It was still passing, and I was given my forehead protector. I decided that I would take the silver off and stitch it into my sash that was used to tie my haori. When I walked back out, Shika-chan was sleeping, having only answered one question on his test. I shrugged, deciding I would just stay there and see how my friends and cousin did. Uke-chan and Shika-chan ended up passing. Naruto-chan didn't. Naruto-chan? He looked about ready to tear up. I wanted to rip the world apart for making him look so sad. Then an unexpected factor was introduced, Mizuki. He was so blatant in his treachery. The man didn't even really bother to hide what he was doing, even when I was standing right there watching him manipulate my friend. Still, I knew that Naruto would take the man's word as law, especially considering it could potentially get him what he wanted most, becoming an active shinobi. So I pretended as if I believed it too. Being with Naruto-chan when this inevitably blew up was the better option to getting Naruto mad at me for my suspicion and then the blonde going off to do the mission on his own. I stayed at Naruto's side the whole way, even when he used his jutsu on the Hokage. Personally, I'd never seen what was so appealing about the jutsu, although many of the other people in my class liked it. Too much. Just like the Hokage, it seemed, because the man fell over from blood loss as it just spurted like a geyser out of his nose. It was frankly disturbing to think that the Hokage of the village could be done in so easily. I really hoped the man was faking it. If he wasn't though, it gives me a few ideas. If I could make a genjutsu that played on perverts, that would actually work rather well. I would need to research that later on. Naruto took the scroll he was after, and we both fled into the forest. Honestly, I was incredibly surprised that this had worked out. It seems that even I had underestimated Naruto-chan because his stealth was pretty damn amazing. I knew his traps were good, but this was another thing entirely. We settled down to wait for Mizuki, Naruto doing so by going to the scroll and learning the jutsu that he wanted. There's a cool genjutsu in here too. I tried to resist. Can I see Naruto-chan? I couldn't bring myself to. Naruto handed me the scroll as he worked on the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and there were tons of techniques on there. I knew the one that Naruto was talking about right off the bat. It was called Genjutsu Kokwangyo no Jutsu, the description saying that it brought the opponent to blindness. It was apparently extremely chakra intensive and extremely hard to break. Only people with greater chakra control or chakra amount could break it, and even then it was hard. Rated as an A-ranked kinjutsu because of the fact it costs the user so much chakra. I turned on my Sharingan and copied the instructions for the jutsu. I didn't think I'd be learning that anytime soon, but eventually when I had the chakra for it, the technique could be one of my best. It was Iruka-sensei who eventually burst through into the clearing Naruto and I occupied. In the meantime, I took to staring at Naruto-chan in awe. He got that technique down incredibly fast. Although he didn't master it, considering he wasn't having any feedback from the clones, I had tested it. Still, it was incredibly impressive. Naruto-kun, I expect things like this from you, but you Raishi-kun? I expected better? He looked honestly disappointed, and Iruka's disappointment burned. Naruto jumped to our defense. Mizuki-sensei said that I could pass the genin test if I took this scroll and learned a jutsu from it, and I have. Naruto raised his hand in the sign for Kage Bunshin, and two solid clones appeared at his side. Iruka seemed rather dumbfounded. I didn't blame him. He also seemed confused. Mizuki, what did you do? I heard him mutter to himself. I was trying to get the scroll and blame it all on the little demon. Everyone would believe it. The plan was pretty much foolproof as well. A voice came from the shadows and walked farther into the clearing, showing itself. Mizuki. However, he looked half-crazed. Demon? Naruto whispered to himself, his head facing downward, eyes sad. You said that you wanted to help me. That I could pass. Did I say that? Why would I ever let a demon like you into the shinobi corps? I've tried so hard over the years to make sure you failed, teaching you the wrong things, the wrong forms, stances. It worked. Finally, my plan has panned out. He gave an evil smirk. But before I kill you, did you want to know the reason? Why everyone hates you? As Mizuki was speaking, I was growing to hate him. I hated him more than I ever hated Itachi. Who was he, to talk to Naruto like that? The sunny blonde didn't deserve it. That sort of hollow look should never be in his eyes. I hide in the shadows, no one noticed me leave, all caught up in their own drama. Mizuki, you can't say anything, the third's law. Iruka whispered. Horror started to spread on his face. The ninja didn't listen. Naruto, you are the demon fox that attacked Konoha all those years ago. The one that the fourth died to seal away. He sealed it into you. Hell, you're the one that killed Iruka's parents. I honestly don't understand how he can stand to so much as look at you. Before another word could escape his mouth, I started to form hand signs: dog, snake, monkey, ox, tiger, demon illusion, tree binding death. Mizuki turned stiff for a moment. Hell, he was stiffer than the stiffy Uchiha. I turned my weights off and flashed behind him, sticking a kunai through his neck. The area was silent for a moment. I wondered just how a chunin like Mizuki could actually fall for such a genjutsu. A teacher who had taught us how genjutsu, kai at that. Just more signs of the incompetence that Mizuki wrought. Did I feel bad about killing him? Should I? He was clearly a traitor that was spilling the village's secrets, so regardless I would not be getting into trouble. On top of all those reasons was the fact I was doing it for Naruto, and I would do anything to protect Naru-chan and Uke-chan. Even if it meant killing people and chipping away at my heart. You don't think you went a little bit too far, Raishi? Naruto asked, staring at the corpse before him in shock. No, the way that he talked to you? He didn't deserve anything other than death. A longer, and more painful one at that. He was a traitor, and he was probably going to try to kill all of us to keep his secret. Besides, he was obviously no good to the village, considering he wasn't intelligent enough to notice just what a great person you are, Naru-chan, inside and out. Naruto brightened up at that, despite the body that was in front of them. Not a surprise. I think no matter what the situation was, someone acknowledging Naruto would always make him shine like the sun. Iruka was not sure what to make of the situation. A genin, a just graduated genin, had attacked his former best friend and killed him. Surely, the chunin would have been executed anyway for breaking the third's law, but for a genin to do it, and not even flinch. Still, he gathered himself and turned to Naruto. Raishi-kun is correct. You really are just a mischievous kid, Naruto-kun, not a demon or anything of the sort. I also believe that you are a kid that earned this. Iruka took his headband off and Naruto's goggles, tying the forehead protector around Naruto's forehead. That Kage Bunshin was perfect, far beyond academy level. You more than heard it. You passed Naruto. Naruto glomped his sensei, and I just watched with a bright smile. Naruto truly deserved nothing but moments like these. Uke-chan, are you excited for today? Tilda, I sang toward my cousin as we both left the compound for the academy. Today was the day that we would be getting assigned teams. Sasuke just shot me a disgruntled look. He disliked the nickname externally, but inside I was absolutely sure that he loved it. Way deep down inside his shriveled heart. Nothing to be excited about. It's just teaming announcement. I'll probably end up getting one of my fangirls or something, or someone that would hold me back. Sasuke spoke grumpily. I gave him a teasing poke on the nose. You are unhappy this morning. You're just jealous of my umbrella as always. I don't need you to tell me, I get it. You have to stand there in the sun, while I get all this wonderful shade. He scowled but didn't say anything farther. I pouted the rest of the way to the academy. The day before had been pretty hectic. After we went to the Hokage to talk about what happened, I was questioned rather extensively. They wanted to make sure I was sane. Not only that, but they also wanted to make sure I knew that I couldn't go around telling people Naruto's secret. Of course, I wouldn't. I was almost insulted that they thought I would do so. It was Naruto that they were talking about. I would do essentially anything to protect him, as if I hadn't already proven that by killing Mizuki. We got to the academy, and I took my usual place to the right of Shikamaru. Choji was always to his left. It was a busy day yesterday, but guess what, Shika-chan tilde. Naru-chan passed. I gave him a small, delighted smile as I spoke the words. I knew that he didn't like, nor dislike Naruto, and was ultimately neutral on my praising the blonde. So, who do you think the teams will be? Troublesome. Ino, Choji, and I will make a team. You, Sasuke, and Naruto will make another, and finally, Shino, Hinata, and Kiba will make a team. I thought them over, and it made a lot of sense. Reasoning? I was curious after all. Shikamaru gave a suffering sigh. but answered the question. Ino Shikacho is a tried and tested team formation. You and Sasuke along with Naruto is a balanced team, dead last with the rookie, but also you and Sasuke will be stuck together under someone with the Sharingan. I think his name was Kakashi or something. Finally, Shino, Hinata, and Kiba make a great tracking team. You're so smart Shika-chan tilde. I crowed toward him, and he gave me an unimpressed look. You could have figured it out yourself, erg? You're almost as lazy as me, I swear. Ellipsis. That was actually somewhat true. I couldn't deny that. Sure, I wasn't anywhere near lazy, but I definitely avoided hard work. I hated doing things that were too physically demanding, including taijutsu. I barely even knew that academy style. I rubbed the back of my head sheepishly and grinned at him. Ah tilde, you caught me. As if you were sneaky about it. My friend knew me all too well. When Naruto came in, there was an outburst by one of the fangirls, asking what he was doing there. Naruto just gave the biggest grin and said that he had finally heard his forehead protector and that he was now a shinobi. He looked rather proud of himself, and I couldn't find it within myself to allow that to wilt. Soon enough, two of my most hated enemies entered the classroom. Sakura and Ino, both fangirls of the highest degree. Sakura especially was offensive, in the way that she treated Naruto, as the blonde did nothing but try to be nice toward her. Sakura immediately started to be rude toward Naruto. I kept a smile painted on my face. Your big brother complex for Naruto is way too strong, Shikamaru regarded, even as I tried to hide the want to rip Sakura to pieces. I switched my masking smile into a pout. You're so mean to me Shika-chan, you know I can't help it. Just look at how adorable he is. So innocent, and he tries to be nice to nearly everyone. He is so determined as well. He deserves someone to look after him. It wasn't the first time that they had this conversation. I know one thing for sure. I don't care what team I'm on, as long as I'm not on the same team as that lazy dumb. Ino shouted suddenly, interrupting all the chatter in the classroom. I saw Shikamaru smirk a little bit before he laid his head down on the table. I would wager that he found the fact that Ino was going to be on his team after that little outburst to be quite amusing. Chatter rose and fell, more excited interruptions as they all theorized whom their teammates would be. Quiet down, it's time for your team assignments. Before I give them out there is something that I would like to say. Iruka-sensei paused, looking at all the students before him, pride in his eyes. I know that you will all become splendid shinobi of the leaf. It was simple, but there was a lot of emotion and hope behind it. It was very touching, and I totally wasn't about to cry about it. Honestly, I didn't even come close. Shikamaru was just sending me weird sideways looks because he always does that. Ultimately, Shikamaru's prediction panned out. Team 7, Uchiha Sasuke, Uchiha Raishi, and Naruto Uzumaki under Hitaki Kakashi. All male teams were rare. I found it interesting that they had done it at all. Both Sasuke and I made sense, but I would have figured they would switch Naruto out for a girl. Don't get me wrong, I am more than happy about the fact that Naruto-chan is on my team, but something didn't fit. It was probably because of the Kyuubi. If something didn't make sense when it came to Naruto, from now on I was going to simply default to that answer. We waited hours and still no sign of Kaka-sensei. Naruto was impatient. All the extra energy that he had built up was making him practically bounce off the walls. Uke-chan was in stark contrast to this, brooding, resting his head on crossed fingers. Me? After the first hour, I took a little nap. I only awoke when Naruto came over and poked me a dozen times saying that he had heard someone approaching. I was surprised, when who I assumed was our new sensei entered, only to get a hair full of chalk dust. It was somewhat hard to see, as the color mixed with his hair perfectly. I knew of course, who Kakashi Hitaki was. He was in the Uchiha clan records a lot, along with history books. White hair, mask, one eye covered, underneath holding the Sharingan. The story behind the Sharingan he held was actually rather tragic. From what I could tell, that Obito was actually a close relative of mine in regards to blood, not to mention he wasn't a stiffy, so Shisui had told me all about him. My first impression of you is... The man paused, lifting his finger to his mouth and thought, I hate you. What a great start. Everyone eventually made our way up to the roof where Kakashi requested we meet him. I opened my umbrella the second that the sun hit me. Over the years I'd actually created a weakness for the sun. Having always covered myself when in it, my skin was incredibly fair. I burned especially easy. Luckily enough, I was a medical ninja in training, so I could treat myself for sunburn, but it was still an annoyance. Sensei was there, leaning casually against the rails. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Kaka-sensei, shouldn't you show us how it is done? I spoke, keeping my tone purposefully innocent. The man dipped his head. Well, my name is Kakashi Hitaki. My likes. I have a few. My dislikes, well, I guess I don't dislike that much. My hobbies are too adult for you. Finally, my dream for the future, I guess I don't have one. His eye pulled downward in some sort of smile. He felt sarcastic, but there was a sense of humor behind it that made me actually chuckle. It seemed like I would get along with my new sensei. He was definitely good at keeping his cards to his chest, as Shisui ni had taught me. I'll go next, I guess. My name is Raishi Uchiha. My likes are reading, cloud watching, my umbrella, Naru-chan, Shika-chan, and Uke-chan. My dislikes include people who can't get past their emotions to see the facts and stiffy Uchiha. My hobbies are similar to my likes, I suppose, and my dream for the future. I never really thought about it. I guess that I really want to protect the people I care about and make sure they get their own dream. I finished with a smile toward my sensei and the aforementioned people. Naruto was practically jumping out of his seat by the time I'd finished. Me next. Me next. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. My likes are ramen and reishi. I dislike the 3 minutes it takes for ramen to cook, and people who would hurt my friends. My hobbies are training. My dream for the future is to become Hokage and protect the village and all the people in it. He sounded so determined. I stared at him in slight awe, my being lightened and a wide smile crossing my face. Sasuke let the silence continue for a moment before he made his own introduction. I'm Sasuke Uchiha. I have a lot of likes and dislikes. My hobby is training, and my goal for the future is to rebuild my clan and kill a certain someone. I fought the urge to sigh at the predictable dream. Instead, I looked at my cousin with a teasing glint in my eye. Rebuild our clan, huh? Just how are you planning to do that? Got your eye on a special someone I don't know about? He actually blushed and looked a loss for words. Naruto burst into laughter promptly enough. Our sensei was definitely shaking lightly, although he had not allowed a noise to escape him. I couldn't take it any longer and burst into snickers myself. It wasn't often that I found a tease that could get a reaction like that out of my stiffy cousin. Kakashi took this chance to look over his potential new team. The blonde was a bit dim. Kakashi had been informed of this. Raishi Uchiha was weird for one of his clan. He seemed to smile, showed a full spectrum of emotions. The way that he looked to Naruto was interesting, especially when the blonde mentioned his dream. Sasuke was going to be a problem. Kakashi knew but was surprised by the little tease and how he responded to it. That meant the Uchiha wasn't beyond help, less of a flight risk than anyone had thought. As for their skills, Sasuke was the one that was skilled, so the academy teachers had told Kakashi. Naruto was apparently pathetically below average for a genin, the Hokage's fault for not letting Kakashi take him in like the silver-haired man wanted. And the other Uchiha was a mystery. Apparently, he had a good amount of skill in sometimes, but was just utterly uninterested in others and didn't bother to learn them. An assessment that didn't match the personality before him. Overall, it was a troubled situation. Well, I guess this is the point that I tell my potential students that you haven't actually passed and become genin yet. I expected something like this. Naruto, however, exclaimed at the top of his lungs, "What?" Sasuke seemed disgruntled as well. You have to survive my survival exam tomorrow to actually become a genin. I know something that will scare the shit out of you, the actual pass rate. It's low. Only 66% of students actually end up passing this test. Kakashi said, misleading the ones before him and watching their reactions. Naruto and Sasuke seemed determined, while the one under the umbrella seemed thoughtful. A dangerous sort of thoughtful, Kakashi carefully noted. Kakashi was true in his thinking, as I was mulling over everything I'd learned about genin teams throughout my years at the academy. There was no mention of a second test, but that was expected. A shinobi needs to keep secrets. I would simply be careful about just what this meant for me until I knew all the details. Suddenly, I smiled. I'm sure we can manage if we work together. I knew that Sasuke would disagree with the notion, believing that both Naruto and I would slow him down. Perhaps a thought that I was responsible for, having never actually made sure Sasuke was completely aware regarding my skill level. Regardless of any false determination you might have, the facts remain the same. Kakashi spoke, trying to dash any hope before it rose. It's going to be a hellish day, so don't bother eating. You'll just throw it all up before you're done. Liar, Reishi immediately pointed out internally. You needed to eat before any sort of training because of the calories you burned through. If you didn't eat enough, a ninja could pass out. I am sure that Kakashi knew this, so why was he playing like a sly little shit? I was not appreciating the fact he was saying something so false toward my teammates who could actually hurt themselves if they didn't eat. Meet me at Training Ground 7, tomorrow, 8 AM on the dot. I was glaring at him as he used a shunshin to vanish. The next morning, I got dressed in my typical clothing and went off to the training field. I bought a few extra food rations because Uke-chan and Naru-chan were both idiots sometimes that needed me to kick them in the ass to get them to realize what was in front of their noses. Shika-chan was nothing like that. Being around Shika-chan was much easier. I wouldn't trade either feeling for anything in the world, however. I knew exactly what I looked like, refreshed, cool under my umbrella from the sun well-fed. Both of my teammates looked like an utter nightmare. I knew almost for certain that Kakashi would be late, so I decided to let them learn their lesson on not taking care of themselves properly before I assisted them. An hour later, and several stomach growls that could have woken the dead, I handed both of them a ration bar and a lecture. You need calories as a shinobi. Every morning you will eat breakfast and you will eat all of your meals along with snacks throughout the day. If you don't, I let a teasing sparkle lit my eye. I'll definitely go over to the Hokage monument and paint the words, Naruto and Sasuke love each other, all over it. Both of them looked utterly gobsmacked by the words that left my mouth. Kakashi showed up 2 hours later. I had taken the time to fall asleep for a little nap while standing up. It was a running problem for me. If I was bored, I just tended to sleep. Iruka was a big factor in it. In fact, you could say that he created that little trait. Perhaps it was part of the reason that Shika-chan and I got along so well. We both liked sleeping and cloud watching. Truly, though, I wasn't anywhere near as lazy as the Nara. Despite how I seemed sometimes, I knew that such a level of laziness was certainly something that I needed to avoid at all costs. I see you're all here. Sorry about being so late. I went to the bookstore to get my favorite novel, but they were all out, so I had to go around the entire village to find a new version of it. It wasn't the most fun morning. I had heard that Kakashi Hitaki was well known for giving ridiculous reasons for being late. Somehow, though, I believed this one. In fact, I could relate to that. One time I was looking for a book on paralysis poisons and I had to go to every fucking bookstore and library in the whole village to find it. I think I napped with Shika-chan for a few hours after that. Anyway, let's get started. You have until this timer goes out. Since you seem to have eaten, I guess this lunch that I brought is less of a factor than it should be, but at the end of the time, one of you will be tied to this pole while the others eat lunch in front of them. The only way that you can actually pass is if you take these bells from me. Kakashi pulled out 2 bells and tied them to his waist. 2 of you will pass, 1 will fail. Hence the fact that only 66% of people pass the Genin exam. My mind left me with whirling possibilities. If you want to get the bells, you'll have to come at me with intent to kill. The words rang true. Kakashi was a legend in the ninja world. Even when trying to kill him, we still wouldn't get the bells. We never stood a chance. That, if nothing else, made this test suspicious. It literally was not possible. Therefore, there had to be more to it. I could buy the fact that forces were working against Naruto to get him not to be on a team. But always it was a 4-man Genin squad, 1 Junin and 3 Genin for rookies. So 2 bells, trying to split us up? Annoying, as Sasuke and Naruto simply wouldn't work together. Individually I could get either of the 2 work with me, but the 2 mixed like water and oil. I should have tried harder to get them more comfortable with each other throughout the years. Now I was desperately wishing that I had actually put the effort into thinking about potential Genin teams before. No use crying over spoiled milk, I suppose. Naru-chan rushed forward before the test began, going straight for the bells. Kakashi stopped the blonde easily, but I could tell he seemed a little bit impressed by Naruto's cheating. You got the right idea, I see. Maybe try waiting until I say start this time, little fox. Kakashi said teasingly. Naruto scowled, but no sadness entered his eyes. If anything, he seemed happy that someone was, in good nature, teasing him about his affliction. Good, if it made Naruto happy all the better. Kakashi went from mildly amused to bored in half a second. Alright. Remember, when this bell rings we meet back here. NNNNDDDD. Start. Both Sasuke and I ran into the shadows and hide. Naruto-chan did as well, for about half a second. You and me, right now. I bet I can beat you with one hand tied behind my back. Naruto suddenly exclaimed, looking rather sure of himself. Naruto definitely needed help learning to play to his own strengths. Stealth and traps were actually Naruto's greatest asset. His creativity could shine in that aspect. Open warfare, despite fitting Naruto's personality, didn't suit his skill set. This was clearly something that I would have to do something about. You know, compared to the other two, you're a bit off. Kakashi suddenly said to the blonde shinobi. Clearly I've failed my friendship with Naruto-chan. I spoke softly, feeling an amused sort of horrified. I knew that Kakashi would not hurt Naruto-chan that much, not with the Uzumaki being such a favorite of the Hokage. My prediction seemed to have been proven correct when Kakashi seemed to reach for a weapon, but instead pulled out a book. I saw Naruto's expression, and could not hold in my laughter. I fell to the ground, holding my stomach, and giving away my location. Undoubtedly, Kakashi-sensei already knew where I was, but now my teammates knew as well. By the time I had regained myself, the fight had progressed. Kakashi-sensei was making the tiger seal from behind Naruto's back. Without conscious thought, I turned my weights off, opened my fan placing it where the attack would hit, and replaced myself with Naruto. My knowledge of the fact Kakashi-sensei would not actually hurt Naruto-chan having deserted me, leaving me with only my instincts to protect those who meant something to me. The attack was less of an attack as it was an embarrassment. The attack hit my umbrella and sent me skidding a few feet. I quickly turned around with wide eyes, honestly wondering just what the hell had happened. Kakashi's eye was wide as he looked at his fingers, they were bent out of shape. Mama tilde Raishi-kun, just what is that umbrella made of? He gave one of those eye smiles as he said it, giving no sign of pain as he reached down and snapped his own fingers back into place. I was about to slip into a lecture about just how horrible that was for someone to do from a medical standpoint, the narrow and bone fragments being displaced in his hand which could cause. But then I remembered what had just happened. Tilde? What do you mean Kakashi-sensei? Tilde, it is just a normal umbrella. Maybe if you weren't trying to naughty touch your own students something like this wouldn't have happened. I gave the man a sly smile, and replaced myself with a branch in a tree in the forest, getting out of the clearing. I quickly folded my umbrella and stuck it to my back using chakra. Quickly, I made my way deeper in, needing somewhere to think things over. Once in cover, I tried to remain alert while slipping into my own thoughts. This test was not right, which I had thought before it had even begun, but what was the objective? Trying to create a fracture so that we could not use teamwork seemed the most likely. Was it too easy? Kakashi was a genius after all, what were the other possibilities? The hate against Naruto was great. No, the Hokage would not allow that, as much was clear after the way the old Hokage had talked to me the other day. There were no other reasonable explanations. Raishi-kun tilde, I heard that you are one of the best in the academy, second only to Sakura Haruno when it comes to genjutsu. Let's test that theory. I heard Kakashi, the second my name had come out of his mouth. I spun to face him, but the man had already made hand seals before I could get a work in edgewise. Demonic illusion. Death mirage jutsu. Frankly, using such a low genjutsu on me was practically insulting. It was far more insulting, however, to compare me to Sakura Haruno of all people, than to say that she was better than I was. Shisui ni had said that pride was the downfall of many an Uchiha, but this? That was just too much. I was my brother's brother. If anything, Kakashi should compare me to Shisui ni, not to useless, fangirl, Sakura, of all people. I released the genjutsu before it could even take effect. You shouldn't underestimate people, sensei tilde. I practically sang to the man. I'm actually better than Sakura. For some reason, people seemed under the impression that I was not as good because I slept in class all the time. I am honestly feeling a little bit insulted right now. Because of the slight you made on my person, you should let me go, Kakashi-sensei tilde. I have to go meet up with my wayward teammates and try to scavenge this little test. Kakashi hummed, appearing to think it over. I got in position to run as I listened to what he had to say. I should think not. I took off running. Kakashi was suddenly in front of me. I reached toward my back and grabbed my umbrella. Swinging it sideways in an attempt to get him in the ribs, he disappeared and I hit the tree, causing it to splinter. My sight faded to black. Kakashi stared at the Uchiha laid before him. Then he looked up to where the umbrella had hit the tree and winced. Had that attack hit, his ribcage would have been shattered into a million pieces, at least, had it not been augmented with chakra. Kakashi reached down and grabbed the umbrella beside the fallen male. As he tried to pick it up, his eyes widened in surprise. The damn thing was heavy, and the slight Uchiha carried it around as if it was nothing? It was not an issue for Kakashi to pick it up, but it was a whole other issue that Rishi could wield it like that. Walk around with the umbrella as though it were no different from a typical sun umbrella. The genin would have had to be training with it for years before he had reached such a level. Even Kakashi could not walk around with something like this and show no strain on his muscles. He was fast too. Of course, the downed child was not Junin fast, but low Chunin sounded about right. How Rishi Uchiha's academy record could be so wrong was baffling. It occurred to Kakashi that the young Uchiha could have just been hiding his skill level, but Kakashi discarded it. It was more a factor of the instructors looking more heavily at the bad, and paying no mind to the good. Kakashi had noticed the fact Rishi seemed almost out of breath from just the little fight that they'd had, replacing Naruto, running into the forest, hiding, and then the little scuffle. Low stamina for sure, but acceptable, especially considering the genin's skill in genjutsu, speed, and that weapon of his. Speaking of that little replacement with Naruto, there was still a dull pain in Kakashi's fingers despite the fact he had used his minuscule amount of healing jutsu on them. Hitting that umbrella with a chakra-enhanced finger was not a good idea. He had been impressed that the Uchiha cared so much for his teammate. He also hinted to having figured out the test. Too bad, he would not get the chance to find his teammates and inform them. There was no time for farther musings, so Kakashi placed the umbrella down with its owner and went off to find his next victim. When I woke up, the bell was ringing and my head was screaming in pain. My whole body was. I grabbed my umbrella and placed it on my back. I walked toward the place we were meant to meet up again, all the while healing myself. I finished rather quickly. There had been no actual wounds, just soreness after all. Upon reaching the starting place, I saw Naru-chan tied up to a pole, Uke-chan behind him, and Kaka-sensei waiting for us. Rishi-kun, we were waiting for you. There was a note of disapproval in the Junin's voice. I just gave a sarcastic smile. Don't give out what you can't take. I was pretty unhappy about the fact he knocked me out. If he had not, Mateen would be genin right now. I was sure of this fact. Therefore, I did not so much as take another glance toward the Junin. Naru-chan, Uke-chan, are you two okay? I'm fine Rishi, Datbayo. They were lying to me. I had been going to heal them, finally showing the skill I'd been keeping under wraps. Instead, I decided that the little mild pain wouldn't have them keeling over. Maybe next time they would not lie to me. I sat near the pole opposite side of Sasuke and finally turned toward Kakashi. Now that we're all together again, we can discuss your results. The man clapped his hands once, his voice cheerful. You failed so hard that you should quit being shinobi. Let me off of this pole and I'll get those bells no problem. Naruto said, squirming around. Kakashi seemed bored at this point, settling on a lecture. This was a test of teamwork, but you couldn't get past your own egos. Rishi-kun seemed to notice but wasn't strong enough to get past me to actually help his teammates. All in all, you simply aren't worth the effort to turn into something usable. We're humans, not objects, I spoke up, disliking the way phrased things. Sasuke glanced my way in surprise. I knew why. He thought me to be at least somewhat intelligent despite my usually sunny and teasing disposition. So, by that logic, he assumed that I knew shinobi were not much more than tools. No one understood my cousin's thought process better than me. However, I knew what shinobi really were. As long as you did it right, you were human. As with any human, you could make mistakes, you had emotions, ultimately, you were not just something usable. Kakashi did not say anything to my comment, but Naruto seemed to nod along with what I said. Kakashi grabbed Sasuke and held a kunai to his throat before any of us could even move. Kill Naruto or I'll kill Sasuke. I could feel myself glaring, I could feel the chakra leak into my eyes, and my whole body was tensed beyond anything I would felt before. I wanted to rip Kakashi's eyes out for what he was doing. Even the idea of being put in a situation like this was practically pushing me to the edge of my sanity. I could not allow Sasuke to see me like that. I immediately calmed down and smiled at my sensei. I'd like to see what the Hokage would think about that particular ultimatum. Even if it worked, I would only end up getting to see the fulfilling sight of you getting your head ripped off in public execution. Was a smile appropriate for what I had said? Probably not, but at least I stopped myself from spewing killing intent across the field. The last thing in this world that I needed was for Uke-chan to look at me as though I were similar to Itachi. Besides, this was not the first time my Uchiha blood had taken over. I was much more prepared for the prospect this time. Kakashi could practically fell the executioner's blade on his neck after the comment from Reishi, and allowed Sasuke to drop back to the ground. It still proved my point, no matter how fictional the choice. Those are the types of things you might one day have to decide. Teamwork is the most important part of being a Konoha shinobi. A good friend once told me this before he lost his life trying to protect me and my other teammate. Those who break the rules are trash, but those that abandon their comrades are worse than trash, and I now live by those words. Any team headed by me, they will be expected to as well. I had originally thought that Kakashi was quite the joker, despite knowing that he was such a famous shinobi. Those words showed me quite the different side of the man. I could not help but like that side of him as well. That was the type of person you would want to be, the person who would protect your back in dangerous missions. I'll give you one more chance. You two will eat, do not feed or untie Naruto, and when I come back, we will start the test over. If I find out that you have cheated, it won't be pretty. With that, Kakashi poofed away. Immediately I pulled out a ration bar and opened it, stuffing it into Naruto's mouth without a word and going back to eating my meal as if it never happened. It was an extremely fast movement, but despite the fact that I wanted to pass the test, despite the fact that I wanted to be a genin, I wouldn't do so if it put Naruto-chan's life in danger. And fighting without eating at Naruto's metabolism? He could do it for a while, but nowhere near as long as a normal shinobi. That was part of the reason Naruto craved ramen, no doubt. He needed the extra carbs and his body was self-treating itself. No one knows what you need like your own body. Many medical tests said that, and I tended to agree. Sasuke noticed what I did, and did not talk about it either, just went back to eating his own food. Naruto-chan also did not comment, probably because his mouth was still too full as he tried to find some way to actually chew the full calorie bar that had been stuffed into his mouth. You pass. Where the first words I heard the second Kakashi showed back up. Quote ellipsis. We didn't even start the test yet. Oh man, this was the best. I didn't even need to get back up. I felt a smile creep across my face as I let myself relax into the ground. So, why did we pass? I had done a lot of thinking in this exam already. Might as well let the man explain it. Why bother looking for answers if someone was just giving them out? You feed your teammate despite the fact it was against the rules. You helped him, knowing full well that it could mean you were dropped from the shinobi program. This definitely means you meet my requirements for being a member of my team. Remember what I said about trash and what makes a person a good comrade. Otherwise, you'll end up like all the other heroes on this monument. Kakashi poofed away dramatically. I pouted toward where he was standing. Man, I wanted to ask him about the book he was reading earlier. As I spoke, I reached up and cut Naruto's bindings. Immediately the blonde jumped up and down in triumph. Uke-chan looked every bit as happy, although not quite as open about it. I let the joy sink into me. These were the moments I became a shinobi to protect. I think it was called Icha Icha, Naruto informed me as he calmed down. I had never heard of it before. I wondered if it was a good read. With that in mind, I turned toward the direction of the bookstore, thanked Naruto-chan tilde. I am going to go see what is in the book, should be interesting. You two want to come? Should tell us something interesting about our new sensei. Naruto-chan immediately took off and stood next to me as we left. It did not take but a few seconds for Sasuke's curiosity to win out, as he followed us down the forbidden path. We met in the same training grounds the morning after Kakashi had accepted us. Kaka's-sensei did not show up for a few hours, but for the most part we had been expecting that. Uke-chan most specifically started up a conversation with me. It had not been something that I thought he would bring up with Naruto-chan around, but that just gave me a little bit of hope for Sasuke's mentality. Soon enough Naruto started to run around the field to get rid of excess energy, and I watched him with a smile. "You have your Sharingan," Sasuke stated, not bothering beating around the bush. I glanced toward him out of the corner of my eye, tilde. If he wanted answers, he would have to ask the questions. "When did you get it?" Uke-chan eventually asked after a long pause. I had the feeling that it was an answer he already knew. Should I lie to him? It would be easy enough to, and the last thing I wanted was for the facts to backtrack his progress with me. Over the years he had become much more open, but gaining the Sharingan too long before him might ignite some amount of jealousy. The night of the massacre. That's why I asked you that night, I had assumed you have gained it as well. I confessed, thinking that had I lied, Uke-chan would find out one day, and the fallout from that would be much worse. Sasuke stayed quiet for a moment, he seemed almost lost in thought. "Rishi, since we're of age now, someone needs to take on the Uchiha estates as clan head." "That's true, seeing as how the last one was your father, you are next in line." "Congratulations tilde, I'm sure those council meetings will be extremely fun." I got a real chuckle out of the idea of Sasuke sitting in that room, his childish brooding and impatient to train being written all over his face. "It doesn't have to be me," Sasuke announced suddenly, turning to face me full on. "It's a position that wouldn't fit me, and I don't want it. I have more important goals to focus on. It will be nothing more than a chore. Besides, I do not even have the Sharingan. I do not deserve the place anyway. You though, you could make a good first step in your dream if you do it." This was sudden and more than unexpected. It hadn't even occurred to me that this could be a possibility. The position that it would place me in was precarious. I didn't know a whole lot about the village politics, clan laws, or expectations a position like that would have. Never mind the fact I was only 12, even if I was ready for a responsibly like that. All the people in that room would be trying to manipulate me. It would be a minefield I was stepping on without a map, when everyone else had the Byakugan. If you don't take it, I'll have to. Either that or letting it fall to someone else on the council and they would split the estate. I'd rather they have it all than to take the seat myself. A choice needs to be made by the end of the week. Way to put the pressure on. Why are you guys being so serious? I knew Teme is like that a lot, but I thought you knew better Rishi. Dat Bayo, Naruto exclaimed, suddenly coming closer to us. Before I turned toward the blonde, I spoke one last thing on the matter with my cousin. I'll think about it. I need to study and know what it would entail. Sasuke gave me a small smirk, I would expect nothing less. Sorry about that Naruto-chan tilde, would you believe that sometimes even I need to get serious? I teased him with a quirk of the lips. It's fine, as long as you don't turn into the Teme. He shot Sasuke a dark look, but as always there was a deeper meaning in the look, something I couldn't reach. Whatever was between the two of them had weird undertones that I didn't understand. Ever since we were 8, it had been like that. Kakashi showed up soon after, a cheerful half-wave. "Hello my cute little genin. We are going to do a few things today. First, we are going to go over what our skills are. However, I want each of you to introduce someone else. Naruto will introduce Sasuke, Rishi will introduce Naruto, and Sasuke will introduce Rishi. Afterwards, the individual can fill in anything that the other missed." It was a good way to gauge how well they knew each other. Naruto-chan has a loot of chakra tilde. I taught him some basic chakra control, but it basically means nothing considering how much he has. His ninjutsu is low, but he has an incredible ability to learn it when it's taught. He learned the Kage Bunshin in an hour from a scroll. His taijutsu isn't that good, but that's because he was taught wrong. His genjutsu isn't good, that has a lot to do with his chakra problem. His best skills are in stealth and trapping. He's beyond impressive in those areas. I tossed Naruto a peace sign and the blonde grinned back at me at the even-toned review I had given him. I knew that it was far better than anything he had been given before. Alright, Naruto, you introduce Sasuke now. Naruto-chan's face screwed in thought, throwing a little glare Uke-chan's direction before opening his mouth. Teme is good with taijutsu and ninjutsu. Genjutsu too, I guess. He's pretty smart as well. Slim, but Naruto was able to get over his dislike of Sasuke in order to give some semblance of an answer. Alright Sasuke, you next. Rishi is book smart and good at genjutsu, as well as having activated his Sharingan. Sasuke said, but after thinking it over, realized that he didn't know anything more about his cousin's skills. I was somewhat proud of that fact. Sasuke seemed rather discontent with it. Kakashi thought it over. It was clear that Rishi was quite good at hiding his skills if his own cousin wasn't aware of the majority of his ability. They lived in the same compound after all. It couldn't have been easy for Rishi to hide. Alright, do any of you have something else to add to your introductions? Naruto shook his head no. I had done more than an adequate job after all. This was Naru-chan and Uke-chan, plus our new sensei. They would need information on my skills, and, sure, I got a few things to add. Therefore, my taijutsu is absolute shit and so is my stamina. My main ability lies in planning ahead and figure things out, along with genjutsu, speed, and Iryo ninjutsu. Oh yeah, my umbrella is actually a weapon. EHH. It looks like just a normal umbrella. Naruto exclaimed, looking the thing over. I gave a chuckle, and tossed it over to him. Naruto caught it, and his arms slammed into the ground. He regained himself and tried to hold it up, but struggled to even get off the ground. It was practically Naruto's determination that was allowing him to continue on despite the way his muscles quivered. I was knowledgeable enough on Naru-chan to know this. Iryo ninjutsu? Sasuke said in surprise, having never heard of an Uchiha using healing methods. I figured I would end up with a few idiots for teammates that would need it. Sasuke uttered, internally almost amused by the banter. Kakashi was also surprised at the fact his new student had chosen Iryo ninjutsu as something to specialize in. Despite how useful their dojutsu would be in those fields, neither Uchiha nor Hyuga ever went into the field. Their clan pride had always prevented them from it. Somehow, though, Kakashi doubted it was the fact that Rishi no longer had a clan that led him down that path. The Uchiha was simply different. I walked over toward my umbrella and swung it onto my back. Anything to add to your introduction, Sasuke? I have a few fire jutsu, my clan's taijutsu style, and no genjutsu, although I can release them well. An accurate portrayal of his skills. It actually lessened the impact that Naruto's introduction had, thusly proving that my Naru-chan truly thought well of my cousin. Alright, now that we all know each other's skills well enough, it's time to start doing missions. Naru-chan was practically jumping up and down in excitement. So what are we doing first? Fighting enemy shinobi, saving a princess, helping another country. You're so adorable, Naru-chan I said, carting my hand through his hair. He glared at me for it, but I couldn't help myself, he was honestly just too adorable. Kakashi seemed somewhat similar in the fact he just gave Naruto an evil grin. Our first D rank was actually not that bad. Just a little supply run. Naru-chan was pouting about it, and Sasuke seemed pretty annoyed himself. Kakashi was on the same boat as me, both of us were amused. I was actually a little bit surprised that Sasuke hadn't known about D ranks. We were all walking back to the Hokage's office when I turned toward Kaka-sensei with a raised eyebrow. By the way, after you accepted us yesterday I went to the bookstore. Both Sasuke and Naruto had turned a bright red and seemed to want to be anywhere but where they were. I got a good laugh out of the reaction they had yesterday when I read a few lines of the book aloud. I had been pretty surprised by Naruto's reaction, considering his own pervert-based jutsu. When I called you out on wanting to dirty touch your students during the test, I didn't know you were an actual pervert. I pulled out the Icha Icha novel that I brought and held it up for full reference. Never mind the fact some of this stuff just plain isn't possible, biologically speaking, never mind the appalling writing style. The look is utterly lacking. I guess a pervert like Kaka-sensei doesn't care about those things, huh? Kakashi had stuttered his walking to a halt, staring at his most devious student. It was actually embarrassing being called out like this, although he quickly buried that feeling. Sure, his comrades had done so before, but they weren't adorable young genin. So I was thinking about maybe finding some female junin and going up to them and showing them this book. I thought, if I just tell them my sensei was making me read it. I suddenly shot a sly smile in Kakashi's direction. I probably wouldn't get the chance to do something like that if my sensei showed up on time so that he could train me and my teammates correctly. This little devil, Kakashi thought, dreading not only accepting this team, but also learning just what was there alongside of that sunny personality. It wasn't so much that Rishi hid his talent in playing sly, but just that he didn't use it much, if Kakashi had to guess. Still, this little manipulation wouldn't go unpunished. If Kakashi had to show up on time, then his little genin were going to have a lot more D ranks to get through after their training. Mama, I see your point, Raishi-kun. You don't need to continue holding the book up, Kakashi said, suddenly very aware of his surroundings. I thought you might see it my way. I put the book in my leg pouch, much like Kakashi kept his. I can't wait to see what you teach us, Kaka-sensei. Naruto and Sasuke both watched the byplay in a wondered sort of shock. Naruto suddenly looked up to his only friend a lot more than he had before, and he already inwardly worshipped the ground his first friend walked on. Sasuke, on the other hand, wanted to know who taught his cousin that such abilities weren't natural. But if it got them training, Sasuke didn't mind, as long as it wasn't being used against him. On the way home, I had a lot to think about. Sasuke's early suggestion sat heavy on my mind. Ultimately, I wasn't that interested in being politically active, especially when I would only have a week to prepare, and not preparing properly for something like this would be foolhardy. Still, the idea had its own merits, I could admit this. It put me in a better position to protect both Naru-chan and Uke-chan. Shika-chan didn't need my protection, so that wasn't placed in the consideration. It would also help to me reach my own dream, of helping everyone else get their dream. Naru-chan would need people in the council that he could trust when the time came for him. If I didn't take the position, Sasuke made it clear he wouldn't either, leaving the estate to the greedy people of the council. I would have to accept. When both Sasuke and I had gotten home, I turned toward him. I'll do it. But you are helping me at least gather all the books I'll need to read. Uke-chan gave me a genuine smile, relief in his gaze. I had not thought he was being weighed down by something like this. Perhaps I shouldn't be surprised. He did come from a long line of stiffy Uchiha. He probably had it breed into him that being clan head was his future and something he was meant to do, despite Sasuke's own distaste for the job. It took hours to go through the Uchiha archives to find everything about our laws, the village laws, and just the political information on the elemental nations in general. In the end, we had about 20 books for me to read before I needed to actually step up. I didn't hate reading. If anything, I liked reading on subjects that I enjoyed. This wasn't something I was going to enjoy. It's about 5 books a day, in between missions and training from Kaka-sensei. I probably should have withheld on the blackmail until after this week. Granted, I had not known it would be such an intensive week for me. Uke-chan was giving me a look of pity. I stuck my tongue out at him and carried all the books into my house. I woke up the next morning and wasted no time getting ready, grabbing 3 books to bring with me as I went to the meeting spot, reading one of those books as I went. Kakashi was already there, and I was only a fourth through the first book. First things first, taijutsu practice. I would eventually learn to kill my sensei, nothing would stop me. He was doing this on purpose. The way his eyes were straying over to me was incredibly telling. I was knowledgeable in the best way to deal with people who were purposely trying to upset you though. I smiled. I looked at him as though I were thankful. Kaka-sensei already is trying to help me strengthen my weakness tilde I have the best sensei ever. Kill yourself sensei, I thought, giving the man a smile. If I was going to be forced to do taijutsu, I might as well heighten my weight so I could get more from it. I was getting even more aggravated when Naru-chan and Uke-chan showed up and were happy about the training. We were then put through reps, physical conditioning, and kata. My skin was practically melting off my muscles. By the time we were done, I was just lying on the ground panting, trying not to move. In contrast, Naru-chan and Uke-chan were panting, but were standing straight and seemed to want more. I forced myself to lift my arms and start to heal myself. If anything, the practice in this would be welcome, plus my knowledge was going to save me, because Kakashi was looking at me with sadistic eyes. Sensei, I do not think it is healthy for me to do more of this. If I push myself more than this, I could seriously hurt my muscles. It was true, but not to the fullest extent. I could heal the damage at least partly and do more, but I would not tell him that. I had more important things to do, like reading. Taijutsu practice was just as mind-numbing as I'd always assumed it would be. It was boring, horribly boring, no thinking involved. Anyone could do it, and maybe my problem with taijutsu was egotistical in a way. I never professed my thoughts on the matter aloud and never would. Kakashi nodded, but I got the feeling he knew I was lying. Oh well, as long as I got what I wanted. I spent an hour and a half doing taijutsu. That was more time than I'd ever spent on the skill collectively. I sat down and started to read, waiting for the others to finish training so that we could do a mission. The schedule had been created. Get ready. Read on the way to practice, practice taijutsu and physical conditioning, read, mission, read, eat, read, and sleep. It was working too. I had read all the books that needed reading a full day before I needed to finish them. This left me time to rest. I needed it. I was mentally tired, physically exhausted. I had never worked so hard in my life. Originally, I thought being a genin would not be all that hard. I was wrong. Regardless, I learned a lot of needed information, and wrote down key information in my own little book. The Konoha Council was made of a representative of each of the major village clans, each power of economy, the Hokage's advisors, the Anbu commander, and anyone else that was needed for a specific meeting. The only ones that were mandatory were the clan heads and the Hokage. As far as being clan head, all I needed to do was show up and swear to attempt to make decisions that were to the most benefit toward Konoha. In the clan itself, being clan head meant that you had the ultimate power. Within the Uchiha, there was only the clan head and advisors. Some clans had councils, places where things were put to vote and other people could enforce their opinion. Not within the Uchiha though. There was a highly respected elder council, but they were just considered more advisors, although some of the clan heads gave them more power than they actually had. Tomorrow was bound to be a busy day. Despite all the knowledge I had gained, I knew that I did not hold any cards. The one card I had was that the people in that room would underestimate me, attempt to manipulate me. Since I knew that it was coming, I had the advantage there. It would be best to play on that. Strategy could wait until tomorrow. That morning, I had gone to training just like usual. Before Kakashi's hell, taijutsu training could begin, and Anbu appeared. Both Uke-chan and I were whisked away to the council meeting before Kakashi or Naruto could get in a word edgewise. The meeting room was stuffy and filled with familiar people. I could see the way the clan heirs in our graduating class descended from quite easily. They all looked a great deal like their parents. The Hokage was also quite clear, sitting at the head of the table, looking quite regal, nothing like what I remembered him being like around Naruto-chan. Sasuke-kun, I'm sorry to put this pressure on you, but we need to know your decision. The Hokage put sternly, but not unkindly. It was clear he had sympathy for what he was going to be potentially putting Uke-chan into. This was something that made my respect for the man rise quite a bit, and I already respected him a lot because of everything he did for Naruto-chan. I choose not to take the seat. In my stead, my cousin Rishi Uchiha has agreed to take the place of Uchiha clan head. Uke-chan spoke clearly, but there was a hint of nervousness there. I could not blame him. He was in a room with some of the most powerful people in the world. If he hadn't been nervous, I would have been more worried. Are you sure of his decision, both of you? Hokage spoke, seeming hesitant. In all likelihood, the Hokage thought I was a little bit naive. I couldn't blame him. I did come off that way, mostly on purpose. Sasuke on the other hand, just seemed like the clear-cut option, is better able to protect themselves in a situation like this. Even though the reality was quite the opposite. Sasuke was much easier to manipulate than I was. Just mentioning a certain weasel and he was off like a water bullet. I studied and everything tilde he better be sure. Sasuke just nodded along to what I had said. Can I go train now? He was very blunt, but it had actually proved the point he wanted made. This sort of thing held no interest to him. He wasn't one for mind games. What Sasuke wanted was to get stronger, and it was that simple. This would have been just a distraction. You are dismissed. The third said to Sasuke before calling me over, Rishi-kun, please come over here to be sworn in. The rest of the clan heads and economic powers were pretty silent thus far. I could think of a few things that went through their heads. Some of them wanted to protect me, some of them wanted to use me for my power, typical things. I already knew it would happen, though I hadn't expected just how heavy the atmosphere would be. I pretended I did not notice, however, and practically pranced toward the Hokage, stopping right before him with a tilt of the head. Do you swear to only work on the best intentions toward this village and everyone in it? The Hokage's tone no longer held kindness, but steel that I could admire. The man that I knew protected Naruto-chan the best he could. Someone worth the loyalty. I swear it. You are now the Uchiha clan head. Please take your seat. The the one between the Nara clan and the Hyuga clan was typically belonging to the Uchiha. The seat placement was weird. Nara clan was one thing, but placing the Uchiha and Hyuga next to one another despite the fact they were passively aggressive toward one another for most of their history was just plain. I don't have a good word for it, but it wasn't right. I didn't complain, however. I had no intention of continuing my ancestors' mistakes as head. You would think it was harder to become a part of this council that decided the village's future. Just a small word on how you promised to protect the village was nothing. It was powerful though, it almost felt as though the Hokage could see through you in that moment. I definitely believed there was something more to it, something I could not see. Nothing for it. It was just a distraction to think of that right now. Uchiha-sama, you are extremely young. When I heard that Sasuke-sama was going to either join or lose the estate, I was quite concerned about his mental state. I'm glad that you decided to step forward. Should you need any help, don't hesitate to call on me. You probably need someone to help you anyway. You would have never had someone teach you the laws that you need knowing now. It was some nameless economy power. A civilian that was too big for their own boots, that's what the economy powers were. A nice way to include civilians so that they didn't grow to hate the village they worked within. Subtle. I thought I heard someone mutter, it wasn't a familiar voice though. AWWWWH thank you so much for thinking of me and my cousin. I think I can handle it though, like I said, I studied a lot. I gave the man a thumbs up. I am actually pretty smart you don't have to worry about me. There was a glint of hidden dislike in those eyes. I'd caught him whom did the fool think he was playing with? A normal kid most likely, however much like most ninja that were notable in intelligence, I'd matured and grown too fast to be considered just a mere child. Attention! The only order of business today is the academy schedule. Several complaints were put in by the teachers that they were being restrained unnecessarily in their curriculum. Specifically, they were not able to teach stealth or ninjutsu to the amount that they believed would help lessen the casualty factor in genin. The motion is that a junin come in and rework the current system to better save lives. Not this again. Shikaku muttered under his breath, although he did shoot a glance toward me, expecting? Did he want me to make a specific vote on the matter, or did he already know which way my vote would go? No, he didn't know me well enough. Shikamaru might, but his father definitely didn't. The clan head seemed almost resigned for some reason. Why? It didn't make much sense. Shouldn't this motion be a good thing? Raise hands if you against the notion. All the economic powers raised their hands. I counted, and realized just what the problem was. Without me, the economic powers had more votes than the clan heads. What a sticky situation. I could practically feel the manipulation incoming. Uchiha-sama, there is a reason why we have been keeping this notion from going through these past years. Don't you remember all those people that lagged behind in the academy a little bit? They need more leeway. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to pass. My daughter is one example, Sakura Haruno. Haruno Sr.? Automatically that made me dislike her. I lifted my finger toward my chin as though in thought, I guess. If they cannot keep up with the rest of the class, then they really should not be ninja. Otherwise they would just end up dead in the real world, and that's the problem. No matter what, we just end up with the same amount of people when the ones that shouldn't have passed just die. Too true, Rishi-kun. The Hokage praised. It was a bleak, but true outlook. The room was quickly coming to realize my intelligence card. It was something though, that I had chosen to show. 5 minutes in this room, and I already knew I would not be able to take being underestimated by these people. A lot of the clan heads were looking at me far more accessing than I'd like, despite the fact I had played the card. The Hyuga was glaring at me. Seems he hadn't gotten past old family grudges. Ino Shika Cho were giving each other telling looks. Bug Clan was just silently looking at the other individuals' reactions. Hokage seemed impressed by me. That filled me with a degree of pride and warmth. It wasn't every day that someone like the Hokage looked impressed by you after all. Maybe I just had a weird soft spot for people that looked past my smile and saw my actual intelligence. It made me miss Shikamaru a little bit. Shikamaru had never fallen for my smiles and playful nature. The notion passed. All the ninja were quite happy with this. Good, less dead people was better for the village. It would make it a better place when Naruto eventually became Hokage. The meeting ended quickly, and I had my first taste of what was in store for me these next few years. I did not notice the several eyes that were on me as I left. Darkness had always been closing in, but I had not expected my actions today to make me the prime target. Shisui ni said in his book. Calming down for a moment, stepping back from all of life's stressors is important. As shinobi, we are pushed into moment after moment of tension and heartbreak. We do this for a reason, but as I said before, you need to walk the line. Humans cannot become too stressed before they break. A stiffy Uchiha is a broken down Uchiha if nothing else. I had various ways of calming down and taking a step back. I liked reading and watching the clouds with Shika-chan, and well, that was actually the only thing that I did when I needed to decompress. It was fine though because Shikamaru was always just there. I never needed another way to deal with things. It had been a few days since my first meeting, and I was still tired in the fallout of it all. I needed to get things off my chest. I was not the type to keep things in like this. Keeping skills and important information to yourself was great, Shisui ni had told me to after all. He had not told me just how lonely an existence it was, keeping everything to yourself. Some of the things Shisui ni said contradicted themselves. Keep your cards to yourself, but also find a way to decompress yourself from everything? Walk the line between shinobi and human, but be careful about who you give your emotions to. Shisui ni had written such difficult advice. Therefore, I stayed quiet and tried to find friends. I did, Naruto-chan, Shika-chan, Uke-chan, to name them, but I needed someone to confess to. I was starting to think that the one I wanted to share things with was Shikamaru. Overall, he was the most likely to understand my choices, to give me solid advice. To not betray me, intentionally or otherwise. As always, Shika-chan was easy to find. His cloud-watching space hadn't changed in years, in the sun, but right near the shade of a large tree. He was just there, lounging in the sun, arms behind his head and looking up at the sky, his face graced with a small smile. When he was outside of a relaxing situation like this, his eyes would squint just a little, thousands of thoughts running through his head, rushing to be put through analysis. Similar to me, he knew when to take a step back and relax so he did not get completely overwhelmed by the strength and surge in his thoughts. I sat down next to his head, in the shade, and placing my umbrella on the ground. I turned my head upward, not speaking, just watching the clouds go by. 5 minutes went by the way. Your team? I asked, my tone soft, not breaking the atmosphere. Choji is the same as ever. Ino is just as troublesome as I thought she'd be. Asuma-sensei understands me though, and he plays shogi with me too. His tone remained lazed through the explanation, but I knew Shika-chan for nearly 4 years now. I understood all the things he was just vaguely glossing over. You? Uke-chan and Naru-chan are the same as ever, deep in denial over each other. They were, after all. Those emotions that they held for one another were clear to anyone who was actually looking, and I had been watching over those two for years. Kaka-sensei is interesting. He has a lot of potential weak points to exploit, but I hit one, and the man became the devil. He's been making us do taijutsu and physical conditioning. It's been a bad week. Tu-san told me about you taking clan head, Shikamaru said, cutting through the bullshit and getting to what I really wanted to talk about. He was good at that. It was pushed on me a week before I needed to accept. I guess you could say I haven't had the best week. Something like this is definitely not something you should be thrown into. You have to know certain things, and there's going to be so much manipulation. You like the mental games. Shika-chan groused. Did I? In a way, I suppose I did. It was stressful, more so than any of the things I'd done in my life, but that didn't mean I was blind to the fact I thought of it as a game. I referred to the pieces as cards, after all. It was a dangerous game, but a game nonetheless. Watching someone try to get the best of me, only to fail, was an amazing feeling. It gave me a genuine smile, a feeling of accomplishment. Shika-chan caught me again. I would definitely take the game over taijutsu practice any day. I hadn't even known that about myself until he pointed it out. Sometimes I think you forget that I know you just as well as you know me. I would never I remember everything about Shika-chan, I stated, pretending to be offended. Shikamaru knew that of course, if my feelings had ever actually been hurt, he would know. It's troublesome, but I highly doubt that's all you can hear for. I gave a light sigh. You called it when you said that I like the game. Still, I'm a bit worried. I don't have the resources compared to the others. I'm in a precarious situation. If I don't start to rebuild resources quickly, I could end up being undercut as a clan and be cut from the council. The Uchiha clan has enough resources to be considered a power for a year or so at most. I need members, money, and something to offer the village. Shika turned away from the sun and sat up, facing toward me, with a raised eyebrow as he waited for me to continue. In the past, the Uchiha worked as the police for Konoha. We can no longer do that, we only have 2 members. In addition, there aren't many options for 2 people to help the village as a whole. Ultimately, I'm going to have to adopt members into the clan. Even then, being police no longer fits the clan as it once did. A new idea will need to be created. Simply put, I have no ideas as to what would qualify. I gave a sigh. I didn't mention any of this to Uke-chan. The trouble we were in would make him, internally as it was, feel guilty over putting me in the position. This, added to the fact I don't have enough information on the individuals that I'm going to be working against, mainly the economic powers. That's going to take a lot of recon on my part, although I need to wait until they reveal which of them will be my enemy. I dislike the waiting aspect, it makes me antsy. As for the member problem, we need at least 5 members to be considered a clan. There is a 10-year limit on having less than that before the clanship is dissolved. You've got a lot on your plate, huh? Shikamaru said before he laid back down, patting the space next to him. I laid myself diagonal to him, turning to study his upturned face. The clan member adoption part isn't strictly speaking important for you. It's the most troublesome part that you need to focus on first, what your clan can offer the village. Considering your family dojutsu, you probably have a lot of jutsu that aren't common or even know here. That should put you in a safe space for years. Damn, that was good. Why didn't I think of that? Damn, I was such an idiot sometimes. Of course, that was part of the reason it had been such a good idea to come to Shika-chan. He thought of things differently than me. My intelligence lent itself more to reading people, whereas Shikamaru's intelligence was far more technical. I promptly jumped up in pure joy. I felt a weight fall off me. Ultimately, this gave me so many new cards to play. I was no longer in a bad situation, neither was my clan. Shika-chan, you're the best. Oh man, I owe you so much. Anything you need, Shika-chan, you just let me know. Tilda. I smiled sincerely down at him before I plopped back down and gave him a kiss on his cheek, not even thinking about it, before giving him another wide smile. You're a lifesaver, Maru-kun. I hopped back up and grabbed my umbrella, twirling it around in happiness. Oh man, I owed Shika-chan so much for this. Behind Raishi, there was a slightly red-dusted Shikamaru, watching the Uchiha leave, fingers pressed where the genjutsu user had pressed his lips. What a troublesome guy. Not that he would want Raishi any other way. I really disliked the cat mission. Normally, I wouldn't go through the trouble of finding a way to make it so the mission no longer existed. There was only so much aggravation I could take, however. I took the cat into my arms and activated my Sharingan, trying my hardest not to glare. The rest of my team was watching me curiously, especially Naru-chan, who knew best what I was like when got angry. Instead, I just stared for a minute, blinking, waiting for the cat to copy it. I smirked when I knew I had it. From now on, you will not run away from your owner unless you or your owners are in danger. Kakashi placed his head in his palm. I suspect it was a mix of incredulous feelings toward me, as well as wishing he had thought of it himself. Too bad for Kaka-sensei was just more crafty than him. The Sharingan hypnosis was actually quite powerful in the right person's hands, a lot of potential for abuse. You could essentially take control of someone and get them to do almost anything, as long as it didn't consciously go against their moral code. It had a few other factors in play as well, but those were the main attractions. Cats didn't have that. In contrast, both Uke-chan and Naru-chan looked practically enlightened. Raishi, that was so awesome, Datbeo. Naruto exclaimed, jumping up and down. Sasuke just gave an impressed Uchiha sound, HN. On our way back, I had quite the victorious smirk on my mouth. I hadn't felt so happy in over a week. My meeting with Shika-chan had obviously helped me a lot, and thanked the sage for small victories. The way to the Hokage's office was boring, especially since the cat, for once, was rather passive. Good, the damn thing had learned its lesson when it came to me. Just as we entered the office, however, we came across another team who was there to turn in their own D rank. Shika-chan and his team. If I could see my eyes, I would have spotted the immediate pleasure that entered them. I rushed over to Shika-chan and jumped on his back, knowing damn well what the reaction would be. Shikamaru hit the floor with a bang, unable to hold up the weight that had suddenly crashed into him. Rishi. You're so troublesome? Shika-chan didn't even need to turn around to know it was me. I missed Shika-chan. It's been less than 24 hours, now get off, your fat ass is crushing me. As always, Shikamaru was blunt, not bothering to use energy for social niceties. I grasped at my heart in fake hurt. Shika-chan. You can't say that to a woman, you'll hurt my feelings. You aren't a woman, Rishi, and you're crushing all feeling out of my body, so we're even. I'm starting to think that Shika-chan doesn't want my body plastered against him. I'll just go over there and cry about it then. I pouted, but got off Shikamaru and walked back to my bemused team. There were various elements from both Team 7 and Team 10 that were rather shocked by the playful tone between the two of us. I immediately turned toward Kaka-sensei when I came upon the team. Can you believe it, sensei? I thought Shika-chan liked me. I deepened my pout. Maybe next time take your umbrella off before you jump on his back, you might get a warmer welcome. Kakashi reasoned, before poking his most playful student on the nose. Ino seemed to have recovered from seeing Shikamaru actually having a friend other than the Choji, and turned toward Uke-chan. Sasuke-kun, I haven't seen you in so long. What have you been up to? She attached herself to my cousin like a fucking leech. I was extremely glad that her father was reasonable. The second I became head I was bombarded with contracts offering Sasuke marriage. No matter how good the offer, I had no intention of accepting, but there were hundreds. Ino wasn't among them, thank the Lord. Had she known she would be refused, the girl would have been insufferable toward me. I'll never get what's so good about that Sasuke Teme. Naruto hissed under his breath, his deep blue eyes burning with anger. I shot a smirk toward Shikamaru, who caught my meaning immediately. Naruto was jealous. I looked over to the senseis who had taken to talking to one another. A small twitch of my lips later, I threw the cat toward Kakashi. I knew how hilarious it would have been if the animal grasped onto my sensei's face with its claws. Instead, he safely caught the animal and gave me an eye smile. I think this is meant to go to the client, not my face. I can't believe I forgot that. My bad, Kaka-sensei, let's get going then. I was smiling outwardly, but inwardly I was pouting again. It would have been so funny. Shikamaru was looking on, and to normal people, they would just see typical Naru laziness, but I could see it. He was laughing at me. I knew he was because just like he knew I was pouting, I knew what he was thinking. How insufferable, my inward pout deepened even more. Seems like you got a few troublemakers, Kakashi, Asuma spoke, lips around a cigarette, but he seemed amused. I might come to like him, especially if he took good care of Shikamaru like Shika-chan said he had been. We ended up walking to the Hokage's office together. Handing the traumatized cat over had never been easier. The woman took the cat out of Kaka-sensei's hand with a glare toward him. It made Kaka-sensei sweat a little bit. Was he scared of old women, or that one in particular? Shit, I remember who that was now, the daimyo's wife. Well, at least her cat wouldn't try to get away any longer. No more D ranks. I am sick and tired of these stupid missions. Naru-chan finally blew up, glaring at the Hokage. Despite knowing the sort of relationship the two had, I felt a bolt of nervousness slide down my spine. I could tell that both Sasuke and Shikamaru were much the same. Kaka-sensei immediately brought a fist down on Naru-chan's head for the idiocy. The cage just gave Naru-chan, his considered grandson, a smile. I was actually going to suggest something. Since Team 7 is all male, they need some experience with working alongside a female. I was thinking we could perhaps send both Team 7 and Team 10 on a joint mission. This particular mission would be a C-rank escort mission toward the wave. Kakashi immediately nodded his agreement. Working with each other and other comrades happened to be something Kakashi wanted his team to have beaten into them. This was a good chance to do so. Asuma thought it over as well, but knew that with him and Kakashi, even if his team wasn't ready, which they were, no danger could come to the genin. With agreements all around, the Hokage waved one of his Chunin runners to get the client, Naruto jumping for joy. Thanks, old man. Thanks, Kakashi-sensei. Oh man, what's the mission going to be? I can't wait. Sasuke reached over and flicked Naruto on the forehead. Calm down, dope. Naru-chan shot Uke-chan a pout. So adorable. Oh man, I hope they would get over their denial soon. A drunken old man walked back in, still holding a bottle of sake. I'm your client, the great Tazuna. We broke apart to get anything we might need from our homes for this specific mission. I grabbed a number of ration bars, and a few books. I also brought a typical field medic pack. Included inside were blood-replenishing pills, soldier pills, bandages, and antiseptic. No kunai, explosive kunai, nothing of the sort. I had my weapon, and that was all I ever really learned. Any other equipment would have been a waste to bring. I kept my weights on physically on, but I drained them of chakra. The last thing I needed was to be slowed down if something went wrong. I also bought the book Shisui ni made with me. My chakra control was at a level that I could try to learn his jutsu. He wrote his personal ones in the book, and if I was to carry on his legacy like he'd once claimed I would, it was about time to at least start learning some of them. I walked back to where the teams were meeting, and was greeted with the sight of Tazuna insulting us all, asking if brats like us could actually protect him. I fought the urge to glare at him and say, "If you continue insulting my team like that, I might accidentally let an enemy get you." Instead, I just rolled my eyes, inwardly hoping that this mission wouldn't be too long. Why does the wave need to be so far away? I heard a familiar drawl complain, a yawn erupting after the words. Maybe it wouldn't be as horrible as I thought it would be. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.